On September the 6th, 2001, a significant event took place in the Air Force. That was the day General John Jumper took the reins as Air Force Chief of Staff. Only 5 days later, the Pentagon, like the World Trade Center, was hit by a plane being used as a missile.
You know, being here that day makes you feel like you're a part of history. I was up in the middle of my very first staff meeting, and actually in the middle of the intelligence briefing. And the intelligence briefer said, sir, I've just been told that an airplane has hit one of the Trade Center towers in New York City. We're going to switch to CNN. And about that time we switched over, and the news commentator was talking about how the airplane had hit the building, but it looked like somebody may have been off course going into LaGuardia. And of course, there were a table full of airmen there at that conference table who looked at that dark blue sky on CNN, and we knew right away that it wasn't a navigation mistake. It was something more profound than that. I went to the Secretary of the Air Force's office and got him out of his office, and as we were departing his office, actually the airplane hit this side of the Pentagon where we're standing here today. So we went on downstairs to the Air Force Command Center, and we got started on what needed to be done. The nation pays us to be a professional service. We are a professional group of airmen, and we have to take a very sober look at our responsibilities when every instinct in us tells us we just got to get mad about this. Of course you get angry. But I will never forget, right after 9/11, I was invited out to the 7th game of the World Series in Arizona. And there was a young woman there whose husband had been killed in one of the trade centers. She had no affiliation with the military whatsoever, but I had a chance to meet her, and I will never forget, she put her arms around my neck and whispered in my ear, "You get those guys." That's all the emotion that I needed at the time to get me and everything that was in my power to get over there and start taking care of business. And we did, and she's the one I thought of the day that we got Osama bin Laden.
General Jumper served as the Air Force Chief of Staff for more than 4 years throughout the invasion of Afghanistan, seeing through many important technological and personnel changes that so profoundly impact the Air Force and airmen today. As he looks back 10 years, he sees a lot of success as the Air Force has evolved into more than just the world's premier fighting force, but into a game changer in the battlefield and on the home front.
The Air Force has changed by a lot of things. Certainly the op tempo out there has changed the Air Force and the way we live. But I think we had the right structure in place to put, with the AEF structure, to put predictability into the lives of people who never had it before on deployment cycles. I think we have learned to deploy forward and fit in better as a joint partner in forward locations. We have brought aboard unmanned air vehicles and made them a vital part of what we do day in and day out. We've taken on technology in the whole world of precision-guided munitions, of the next generation high-performance aircraft, of networks and the like. All of these things are technological advances that the Air Force, by its very nature, accommodates quite easily. We're a high-tech outfit by our very definition. But you know what? The airmen in the United States Air Force are no less dedicated to service, to commitment, to patriotism, to serving their country than any generation of airmen that ever served. The people are motivated by the same basic values that make this country as strong as it is, and that has never changed. And I was proud to be a part of it then, and to the extent I'm allowed to continue, I'm proud to be a part of it today.
Dealing with the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks would turn out to define not only the career of the Air Force's most senior officer, but the course of a U.S. presidency as well. Colonel Mark Tillman had the honor of piloting Air Force One during George W. Bush's time as Commander-in-Chief. But on September 11th, he regarded himself just like any other airman, with a job to do.
I was lucky enough to actually be looked at, and I went and flew with the Air Force One guys. They went ahead and selected me to be one of their augmentees, so I started out as a co-pilot with Air Force One and slowly worked my way up To select the presidential pilot at the White House Military Office, they go ahead and put together a package from the Air Force. The Air Force provides names to the White House, and then the White House makes the decision. So I was selected when the Bush administration came into office to go ahead and be the 12th presidential pilot under President Bush. On September 11th, we went ahead and had planned to take the president back to Washington, D.C. As we're sitting in Sarasota, Florida, we could see everything unfolding on television. The first plane that hits the tower, basically, then you can see the second plane hit the tower, and then the staff starts getting into gear, advising the president what is going on. I have to assume the worst. I assume the president was about to be under attack, so we got everything ready at the plane. We got him. There's numerous emergency action plans to take care of the president, so we had to go ahead and start putting those plans into effect to make sure that everybody was ready to accept the president and get him where he needed to go. You had to assume that anything that you were told was an actual threat against the president. Simple things. Man at the end of the runway with a video camera. Couldn't tell what he was or why he was there, but he came at the last second. So we just had to assume that it was some kind of plot against the president. So we countered it by taking off opposite direction, climbing steep above the gentleman, and getting out of Sarasota rather quickly. Subsequently, we got told that Air Force One would be next, and we had to counter that. Not really sure what the plan was, so at that point we started heading out into the Gulf of Mexico to make sure we could keep him safe and get him away from the airliner traffic. Shortly after, the president made the decision he wanted to get on the ground so he could talk to the American people. My thought process throughout the whole thing was to get him to an Air Force base with high security that we could land and I could have all the capabilities I ever needed. On Air Force One, he had all his top leadership with him, so he had the ability to connect with any of the military leadership, which he did. He had his chief of staff with him, Mr. Card, the Secret Service. Everything was on board, self-contained package, so he could make a lot of great decisions on board, and that's what he was doing. He wasn't running scared. He was making great decisions for the country. On the way back, things had settled down by that point. Everybody was working on what the president was going to say that night to address the American people and what our plan of attack was in the future, kind of lining people up to get him into the White House once he landed. Our job on Air Force One was to go ahead and make sure the package on the ground was ready to take him, keep him secure, hand him off to Marine One, and then go ahead and keep our aircraft and people secure as well. You know, everything I did, I know that I'm getting a lot of credit for things that occurred on Air Force One, but it wasn't me. You know, it was leading a group of people. I was kind of the figurehead, but, you know, there were 300 folks that worked Air Force One, but more important, there were thousands of military that supported us day in, day out, that kept the president safe, that, you know, they're the ones that should be getting a big pat on the back and the big hug, because they did everything perfect to make it look seamless for all of us.